Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. If we are meeting for the first time, I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I do this through one-on-one angel sessions, soul mentoring, and a variety of classes designed to inspire your spirit. And you can learn more at my website, illuminatingsouls.com. And if you are interested in scheduling your very own angel session, I will be opening up appointment times this month, which is November. And so if you're interested, be sure to sign up for my mailing list and you will be notified when I open my calendar. And also, if you don't happen to see something on my calendar, it does not mean that I am unavailable for a session. Please feel free to reach out. I typically can schedule you in within a few days. I don't always put all of my availability on my calendar because I like to have spontaneity in life. So you can groove on over to my website and sign up for my mailing list, and you'll learn all about my new classes, angel sessions, soul mentoring, and hopefully I will get an opportunity to inspire you. But for now, the angels and I are here to help you come into a lovely state of rest. So in this moment, I am broadcasting to you from my blanket fort here in Vallejo, California. Vallejo is in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're about 20 miles north of Berkeley and 15 miles south of Napa. So I live in a beautiful area. And the blanket fort, for those of you who are regular listeners, you will know that I throw a big Sherpa cuddly blanket over my computer monitor and tent it over my head to help dampen the sound to make it even more sleepy. And I have dubbed this my blanket fort. And I just have to tell you, it delights me every time I get under the blanket fort to broadcast these waves of love and these messages for you. My heart is so grateful and happy for this opportunity to connect with you. One of the things that I love so much about working with the angels is that these transmissions of love and light are not bound by time and space. So this love that I feel flowing in right now will find you whenever and wherever you listen. Whether it's in a few days or whether it's in a few years, this love will find you. And I just think that is the coolest thing. So here's a broadcast from this moment in time where I reside right now in my blanket fort. And this whoosh of love will find you right now in the moment you are presently embodying. And this love will meet you wherever you are, whatever is happening in your life, whatever you are carrying in your heart in this moment, this wave of love is finding you in the most wonderful of ways. So I invite you to take some nice deep breaths in and just letting go of anything that came before this moment. Allowing yourself to receive this invitation to come into a sanctuary filled with divine light and love for you. And with your permission, the angels will infuse the space you are in with a beautiful, soft light filled with love, calibrated just for you. One of the many things that is so interesting about serving as an angelic channel is that I feel the energy flowing through, and sometimes I get really hot when the energy comes through. And so in this moment, underneath the blanket fort, all of a sudden these waves of heat are flowing through, and it is a sign that the angels are here. So if you're feeling a bit chilly, because I know that some places in the world are experiencing winter and cooler weather, I will also send you this wave of warmth. If you don't want the warmth, you don't have to receive it. So I'm just so grateful to be here with you. As I record this, it is early morning here. Just a little while ago, I saw my husband off to work, and the sun was just starting to peek up over the horizon. So it's a beautiful time of day as I record this, and the world is still a bit quiet. I love all the times of the day. You know, every time of the day has something different to offer. But I have a special place in my heart for the early mornings. It's interesting, I was recalling my father used to always be up early in the morning. I seem to recall he would reflect that things seemed a bit quieter there, and it wasn't unusual for him to be up at 4 or 5 in the morning, but he also fell asleep really early, and never in my wildest dreams did I think I would age my way into my father's circadian rhythm. But I have. I'm now easily awake at 4 o'clock in the morning, as is my husband. We don't get out of bed right away, but it's just our time to catch up and talk and wander through conversations, and then I am a reflection of my father, as by 7:30 or 8 o'clock I am ready for bed. I find it so interesting how our cycles of sleep and wake can change throughout our lives. So whatever your sleep and wake cycle is right now, I invite you to just take a breath in and bless this moment right now, wherever you are in terms of your rest cycle. Just receive the light. And as a sleep podcast, this broadcast is designed to help you drift off into sleep. Not through hypnosis or anything totally woo like that, even though I love the woo. Instead, this is meant to be a gentle, wandering conversation where I can be a companion to you, and I will keep you mildly entertained, but not so entertained that you have to listen with all your focus. There's something that is so sweet about listening to murmuring, wandering voices, having light-hearted conversation as you drift off to sleep. At least that's been my experience. I have such lovely memories as a child of going to sleep, hearing my parents downstairs, or the television was on in the background, and our bedroom was upstairs, and so I could hear it, but it wasn't so loud that it distracted me. But it comforted me. The house wasn't too quiet. There was a little bit of a murmur happening that let me know that people who loved me were nearby. And so I invite you to receive my voice as that affirmation that love is nearby for you, that I am here representing your beautiful team of angels. We all have angels. Isn't that the most wonderful thing? So you have angels, my friend, and they have known you and loved you since before you were born. You are beloved to them, and they are aware of what is transpiring in your life, and they are aware of the dreams and the prayers of the most intimate places of your heart, and they are here to love and support you. So take a deep breath in and just release and let go, and allow your body to grow heavy as you snuggle on up, as you cozy on in, and you prepare for sleep. I love getting to go to sleep at the end of the day. I have a whole ritual for sleep, and it's not complicated and it's not spiritual. It is very earthy. But I fluff up the blankets and the pillows just so, and then I have to wriggle my body just right so that the mattress is supporting my lower back. I typically fall asleep sleeping on my back, and with my earbuds in, listening to a sleep podcast. And it just delights me, because more often than not, when I go to sleep at the end of the day, I do so knowing that I have lived a beautiful day here on planet Earth. I am blessed to have a life that I love. And I know that life can be hard, and days are not always good days. So whatever kind of day you've had, I bring you blessings of goodness, that you've done enough for this day, and there are molecules of love and light and blessings that are incubating in your name. And if you are not sure that these molecules of goodness found you today, my prayer is they find you tomorrow. Tomorrow's another day. And in this moment, we can just shine love upon tomorrow. Send prayers in advance of your arrival. And allow your angels to take care of the days to come while you get a good rest. And so I'll bring the angels in so that you know they are here too. So I'll join you in taking a nice deep breath in as we call ourselves forward into the heart of God. And beautiful angels on high, I am so grateful for your invitation into this beautiful sanctuary. And I invite you to join us here and now. I ask that you infuse this broadcast with waves of divine healing and love for each of our beloveds listening to this message. And angels, I ask that you clear our energy fields through the heart of God, clearing away anything that does not belong to us, helping to ease our burdens and lift our fears off of us so that they can be transformed into light in service to the highest good. And angels, a special request to bring each of us sparks of inspiration that will meet us where we are, that will meet us with the stores of energy we presently have, so that we can find our wings once again and embark upon the most wonderful, joy-filled adventures. And dear ones, just take some nice deep breaths in and release. You know, one of my favorite prayers is such an easy one, and it is, angels, help me open to receive your love and support. Isn't that a lovely prayer request? Because it's one thing to intellectually know that this love is here. It's a whole other thing to open to receive it. So just take a breath and if you will, just set your intention to receive divine love in a way that will be meaningful for you. Because, my friend, you are precious in all this world. You carry gifts and wisdom within you that are unique, that are yours to bring into this world to share with those you love. And this world is better because you are here. I promise you this is true. And so I invite you to give yourself permission to drift off into a good sleep. And I do know that some of you listen during the daytime, so you can hear the stories. And so if you do intend to listen during the daytime, during your waking hours, then I am honored to keep you company during this part of your day. And the love is still streaming through for you. So whether you are going to sleep or whether you are going about your day, I invite you to settle on in and receive the love. And your angels will be with you. And while you rest, I'm going to tell you a story. So for this episode, I thought maybe we could wander together. So if we were out having a friend date, maybe we would, meet in the morning for coffee, and maybe we would go wandering somewhere or go for a hike. We would wander through all kinds of conversations, right? I might tell you about my weekend, and then you would tell me about yours. And I think sometimes we feel like we have to share really important stories. I'm presently facilitating a lovely class that I love so much called The Power of Your Voice. And I think as messengers, we sometimes get caught up in, I need to share with you my most transformational, important stories. And there's absolutely a time and space for that. But in a podcast like this one, I get to share with you just the simple stories of my life, the ones that I would share with you if we were spending the day together. And as I've said before, I do have social graces, and I do not expect you to be riveted by what I'm going to share with you. But this episode is inspired by some of my favorite episodes that Andrew Ackerman records for his podcast, Sleep With Me. And they're the ones where he shares just a snippet of his life. He takes us on a pretend trip to Trader Joe's or on a hike. And those are my favorite episodes because I feel like I'm keeping him company in this lovely sense of companionship. And so it is in the spirit of those episodes that I have loved so much that I create this one for you. So I'm going to share with you a bit about the weekend my husband and I just had. And it was a perfectly ordinary weekend, so there's no huge developments or this is the weekend we we went on a hot air balloon in Napa or something like that. It was lovely and ordinary, probably like your weekends are ordinary and lovely too. I said lovely with an extra syllable there. Lovely. So I'm going to start off by sharing with you something you may already know if you are a loyal listener of the podcast, which is I am presently experiencing an obsession, I will call it an obsession, with love and humor for collecting community cookbooks. So community cookbooks were these recipe books that groups of women typically would put together as fundraisers. So a church group, a sisterhood at a temple, a PTA, a PEO, which I just learned about a few weeks ago, would assemble their recipes and put them into a spiral bound, but more like a plastic comb bound book that they would sell. And these were really big in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, even now, as fundraisers. What I love so much about these books is that they are a snapshot of how the women cooked and thought about food back then. And one of the things I love about them is these cookbooks are not aspirational. You know, if I'm flipping through an Ina Garden cookbook, it is aspirational for me because I do not like to cook. If a recipe has more than 5 ingredients, you've lost me. If I have to chop things up, like more than 2 things, I'm not going to do it. I am very low maintenance when it comes to making my food. But in these community cookbooks, typically the ingredients are simple. The process is simple. It's not for a refined palate where you're seeking to dazzle people with your culinary prowess. And this obsession started innocently enough back in March of this year when somehow I came across a Jewish community cookbook from a synagogue in Chicago near where I grew up. And I did a podcast episode about it. And then we were off to the races. And I have this pattern of becoming obsessed with things. I want to say it's not necessarily an unhealthy obsession, but it's like I binge on something. So in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I started binging on yarn and crocheting. And I bought so much yarn, and I made so many blankets and prayer shawls, and I would drive from store to store. You know, this Joann's up here had the best selection of fill-in-the-blank yarn, and the Michaels over there had something else, and there's this really cool place where you can order yarn from Turkey, the country, and I amassed this unbelievable collection of yarn that I would use, but I have those big plastic tubs now filled with yarn because at some point, by going on, crochet and knit, TikTok and Instagram, I realized that you could have a stash, that people would post pictures of their yarn stash, that you didn't only have to buy yarn for a specific project, which is how I had always bought yarn before, but that you could have a stash, so you would have like your own yarn store, that if you decided to make a blanket, you already had the yarn for it. I thought this was brilliant. And so I bought so much yarn, and I still have it. I've made a lot of blankets. I actually just shipped a 15-pound box of prayer shawls and blankets to a dear friend of mine. She goes for dialysis 3 times a week, and I asked her if she wanted to be an earth angel and hand out blankets to people at her dialysis center, and she loved the idea, so I just packed a box up and sent it to her. So I used this yarn stash. It's not inert and doesn't have any life, but it's an example of my obsessions. And I even added to my yarn stash earlier this year when Michaels was discontinuing one of my favorite yarns. I typically love to work with the bulkier yarn because they crochet up more quickly. It's more satisfying to me because I can make progress more quickly. And they were discontinuing it. And I was like, well, then I'm going to need it in case the future me is going to need this yarn, as if a yarn of this quality would never exist again. I must buy it all. So when I do videos from my office, you can see just part of my office, and on either side of me I have some plastic tubs of yarn stacked up, and there's also more in the garage. But the funny thing about my yarn obsession is one day it just stopped. And it reminds me of that scene in Forrest Gump when he has been running across the country and running, and he's being followed by a group of people, and just one day in the middle of running, he just stops. He's like, okay, I'm done. And that's how my obsessions work. So my yarn obsession has pretty much dwindled, although there is a yarn I am stalking from Premier Yarns that I'm waiting to see if it goes on sale for Black Friday, because I may buy it because it's beautiful. But I have completely digressed from my conversation with you about this weekend and the community cookbook obsession. So I have been going hardcore on these community cookbooks, and I have had some super cool adventures with it, and I will share those with you in another episode, because this episode I just really want to wander through what happened this weekend with you, some of which has to do with community cookbooks. So, I haven't been to antique stores in a really long time. I used to love going to them and estate sales and treasure hunting, but the me that I am now, I find that overwhelming. But I did discover that there is a really sweet antique mall about 20 miles from here in Fairfield. Fairfield and Cordelia are next to each other, so it's called the Cordelia Antique Mall, but I believe it's in Fairfield. And it doesn't really matter, but I'm just trying to be specific. And it's a pretty cool antique mall. And the thing about antique malls is different vendors have different booths or areas. And so overall, I would say it's a really well curated antique mall. It's well set up. The prices seemed a bit high. And I was specifically treasure hunting for some community cookbooks when I went there earlier that week. I did happen to find, though, some old TV guides, one from 1979 and one from 1983, I believe, that I purchased for a future podcast episode because, I love to go into the Wayback Machine when it comes to television, so that's something we can all look forward to. But I didn't see any cookbooks. But I went home and I told my husband about it, and my husband is a collector of things. He would have been an amazing museum curator. He just loves collecting things, and that'll be a story for another day, but he's really good at it. So he had Friday off of work because it was Veterans Day. And somewhere around 3 o'clock, he got this burst of energy. And the thing you should know about my husband and I is we don't like to go anywhere. We have reached this phase of life, and with the pandemic and everything, we are so happy to be home. But around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, after I'd finished my work, Wes was like, let's go somewhere. Let's go to the antique mall. He was intrigued. He'd never been there before. I said, it's 3 o'clock. As if it was 2 in the morning. It's 3 in the afternoon. It's late. This is how old we are. And I said, do you really want to go? He said, yes. I said, well, okay. All right, let's go. As if we would turn into pumpkins being out in the late afternoon. So we drove over there and wandered through and just had a sweet time of it. And we didn't find anything to buy, but it was a nice little adventure for us. And then we came home. The next day, which was Saturday, we had planned to go to some used book sales. That typically the larger libraries will have used book sales, and there's a website where you can look up when they're going to be. And it just so happened this past Saturday there was going to be a very large book sale in Palo Alto and one in Los Altos, which is in the South Bay here in the San Francisco area. So it's about an hour and 15 minutes from here, but with traffic, it could be 2 hours, if you know what I mean. It could be an hour and 15 minutes. It could be 2.5 hours, depending on traffic. But we were going to go and do that, and then I discovered there was going to be one locally here in Benicia that was going to have 50,000 books to choose from. I think Palo Alto was going to have 70,000 and Los Altos was going to have 30,000. So come Saturday morning, we both sort of looked at each other and thought, let's just do Benicia. That's 10 minutes away. Let's just do that instead. So we got up and we hit up the Benicia used book sale when it opened. 10 o'clock, and it had a really big selection. If you were somebody who was looking for books to resell on Amazon or Etsy or eBay, or if you loved collecting, trade paperbacks and hardcover books, more modern, it's a cool book sale. It's very inexpensive. But they didn't necessarily have the kind of treasures that we were looking for, which would be community cookbooks or really cool old books. And something I guess I'll share with you about my relationship with books is that I rarely buy physical books anymore that are current. My bookshelves are all full. And they've become so full, they're disorganized, and it makes me kind of crazy. And so I'm very unlikely to buy a hardcover or paperback book these days unless it's from a friend. If a friend publishes a book, I'll buy it for sure. Or if it's really special. I think the last hardcover book I bought was a John O'Donohue book recently, because it was so beautiful. I thought, I need to own this. I need to have this. I need to be able to touch the words and highlight it. So I absolutely love ebooks. I love ebooks, and that I can download an ebook and borrow it from my local library is incredible. So I don't necessarily feel the need to fill my house with modern books, whether it's a paranormal romance novel, which I love reading, or whether it's a Hay House book or something. I don't feel the need to own a hard copy of it anymore because I can so easily get it from the library or purchase it and put it onto my iPad or my phone. That's just my preference these days. So the Venetia Book Fair was great if you were looking for more modern publications, but not what we were looking for. So we left that pretty quickly. But I had shared with my husband that there was a really cool antique mall in downtown Vallejo, the city where we live. And on Saturdays, they do a farmer's market down there. It's a small farmer's market, maybe about 2 blocks. And as winter happens, the vendors are more sparse. But there's this antique mall right on Georgia Street. And it is where the one in Cordelia is well curated. This one is a cacophony of stuff. There's so much stuff. And I'd gone in there the prior week looking for community cookbooks, but I easily got overwhelmed. I'm still wearing my mask indoors, and that's a conversation for another day, but that is just how I am living life. And when I had gone there the week before, I felt like I was doing clumsy old lady parkour as I tried to step over things to get to other things, and I thought, this is a disaster waiting to happen. I don't want to be that person who falls on a lamp. So I left. But I had mentioned to my husband that it was a cool store and maybe we would go back. He's my comfort zone, so I knew that I would not fall and embarrass myself if he was there. Not that he would be holding on to me the whole time, but if there was an area that was inaccessible because he has the balance of a goat and can do anything, I knew that I could say, hey, will you look in that corner for me? And I wouldn't have to try to clumsily clamber over things to get there. So we went to this antique store in downtown Vallejo. And I have been married to my husband for a long time. We have been together for many years, and I'm always learning something new about him. And something that I have known all along is that we process very differently. There's an amazing TED Talk by Temple Grandin where she talks about how brains work differently. And the metaphor that she gives is that if you ask a group of people to imagine a church steeple, most people will imagine an archetypal church steeple, which is how I work. That's what I would do. She says other kinds of brains imagine a Rolodex of all the church steeples they have ever seen. That's what my husband does. And so over the years we have known this about each other. But when we went to this antique store, here is what I recognized. I was doing a quick overview of each of the areas. I was looking specifically for the plastic combed binding that comes on these community cookbooks. So I was taking in impressions. What my husband does, I don't know how many of you remember the $6 Million Man and Steve Austin, and he had a bionic eye, and he would search something and he would narrow in on it and see all of this detail that other people could not see. That is my husband. He sees every item. He star charts it. It was fascinating to go through the antique store with him. So when I had been there the week before, I hadn't gone upstairs. There's an upstairs to it. And in my clumsy senior parkour mood, I thought, I'm not going upstairs the week before. But this weekend, I said, well, we should go upstairs. And in my impressionist perspective, there was really nothing there to see. And there was a room at the end of the hall that looked like it had nothing interesting in it until there was this little corner of a bookshelf which you could just really only make out if you took the effort to peek around the corner. So I started off by saying, I don't think there's anything there. And then I tried to see it through my husband's eyes, and I was like, well, there is a bookshelf. And we turn the corner, and there's a bunch of community cookbooks. Like, voila, we've been waiting for you. So my husband and I both yip with excitement. And so let me tell you what we found. I'm first going to share with you the obvious ones that I could see with my impressionist perspective, because this is all going to be important in a minute. So there's one called Lioness Pride from Greater Vallejo Lioness Club. So these are local books, which I'm so excited about. And this one was published in 1982. The next one is A Community Cookery by the Community Bible Church of Vallejo, published in 1982. The third one is The Association of McDaniel Parents, the Office of the Solano County Superintendent of Schools in Fairfield, California. And this one was published in 1978. And so at that point, I'm feeling victorious. I'm feeling like we found them. Hooray! My husband, though, is continuing to look with his bionic eyes. He's looking at all the books, and he's flipping through them. And as he's flipping through them, he finds this book, which was sandwiched between other books that I had not seen, and it's called Kitchen Secrets of the Catholic Ladies Aid Society, branch number 61. And I'm not sure when it was published, but I believe it must have been around the 60s. And this also is local, but across the bay. It's listed as San Pablo. So 4 local community cookbooks, which is so cool. And especially the fourth one that I would not have seen without my husband. So we're victorious upstairs at the antique store. And then we go downstairs, which I had already glanced over the week before, but now I have my husband's superpowers with me, which sound really cool, but I also get frustrated because I'm like, okay, there's nothing here, let's move on. And he's still there looking, because that's what he does, right? We each assimilate the information differently. So we go around the store and we get to the part of the store where I experienced the parkour hazards the week before, and some stuff had been moved, but it still required some shimmying sideways to get back to the books. And also there were things stacked up in front of the books. So I just did my cursory Laurel glance, and I was like, yeah, there's nothing here. And I'm in my mask, and I'm hot, and I'm getting kind of aggravated now. And my husband's having the best time. And so he's looking through everything, because that's what he does. And he's kind of kneeling down, which I can't kneel. I am in a phase of my life where squatting down or kneeling doesn't work for me, so I have to bend over, which I don't like to do for long periods of time. So he's kind of squatting down, looking through everything, and he's pulling things out of the way so he can see what's on the back shelf. And my brilliant, beautiful husband found another community cookbook, because of course he did. And this is a book of favorite recipes compiled by Margaret Stair, Reustle, Reustle, for the Mount Lassen Historical Society in 1978. And I would have never seen that book on the shelf because I was fed up and I was hot. It would have involved some kind of squatting down for a long period of time, or moving stuff out of the way, which I wasn't going to do. And he comes out with it victorious. And I was like, I don't know if I need another book, because I also then begin to police myself when I'm buying too much. I'm like, I don't know that we need another book. And then I'm like, okay, we'll get it. Because it was $6. It's not like this was a $60 book, okay? It was $6.50. But I was like, I don't know, it's so expensive, because I get into this weird headspace about things. And my husband, of course, was like, just get it. I was like, I don't know. And I'm very indecisive. And my husband has learned to just make space for my indecisiveness, because I will go back and forth on something 1,000 times before I finally get centered. And so I decided to grab that one. And then we go up to pay. And I really wish I could do this justice, what this antique store looks like. It's just crammed to the gills with all kinds of stuff. Like there's hardly a clear path to anything, which can make it the most wonderful adventure. And so we get to the place where we pay, and there's several people gathered around, and we're waiting our turn. And there's a cat. It's an antique store with a cat. And I love any kind of retail establishment that involves a cat. And this cat is chill. This cat is just kind of hanging out at the desk where you pay for stuff and let you pet it. I mean, most cats don't like people to pet them, right? It's like random strangers. Who are you? But this cat was just chill and beautiful. So while we were waiting to pay, we got a little bit of cat love, which was awesome because I miss having a cat. And we give him our stack of books. And the ones that we had found upstairs didn't have a price on it. So I had no idea how much we were going to have to pay for them. And it was an older man. And he goes, how about $2 each? And I'm like, sold, done, awesome, yes. And then the $6 book that I was going to get was half price. So I got that one for $3. Such a bargain. I love a good bargain. So we got all of those community cookbooks plus a little coin booklet for Wes. And we got all of that for $16 and, 58 cents, whatever the change was. And we came home and we were so happy. Isn't that funny how like a little adventure can make you so happy? So we just were both delighted with ourselves. And we felt so victorious that we did not drive all the way down to the South Bay and have to pay 2 bridge tolls, because here in the Bay Area, something you may not know about this area is for us to get places, we need to go over bridges. And bridges cost money. A bridge toll is $7. So, for instance, there's a really good Trader Joe's, which is fairly close to me, but it's over a bridge. So if I want to go to that Trader Joe's, I immediately just have to add $7 on to my budget. Not that I really budget like that, but in my head, right? I'm like, why would I pay $7 to go to that Trader Joe's when I can just go a few extra miles and go to the one in Fairfield or Napa? So I do this mental calculation of, okay, is it toll worthy? Is it worth a toll? So when I go to Berkeley Bowl, it's worth the $7 toll, but then I try to go to other places in that part of the Bay Area to make it worth my while. So we were feeling victorious that we did not have to pay a toll. We did not have to go to the South Bay. That what we were seeking to find was waiting for us in our hometown. It was such a sweet little metaphor. So that was our Saturday. And then on Sunday, I don't have a lot to share about Sunday other than I did my grocery shopping, because I normally do my grocery shopping on Friday or Saturday, but because of our great book adventure, I didn't do it on Saturday, and for some reason I didn't do it on Friday, so I did it on Sunday, which meant that I got up super early. You know what? I need to amend that. I always get up super early. I should amend it to say I got out of the house super early. Big difference. So I got up and got out of the house super early, and I went up to Napa, which is always a lovely drive, and I hit up my local Whole Foods and Trader Joe's and bought my requisite groceries for the week. And then I headed home, and I also did a pit stop at Costco for more of our weekly supplies. And then, because it's been really cool here, I put in a batch of veggie soup into the crock pot, which I've shared this recipe with you before, but I'll share it again. It's a super easy recipe because I do not like to cook complicated or to chop things. I take a box of the creamy tomato soup that I get at Trader Joe's. And if you don't have a Trader Joe's, you can probably find another brand of it. And then I take a big bag of cut up broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots, and I put that into the crock pot with a can of beans, whatever kind of beans you like, and a bunch of seasoning, and then I just let it cook, and it makes delicious vegetable soup. So on Sunday I made us vegetable soup, and I did some other meal prep, and we watched The Crown on Netflix. So I don't know how many of you are watching The Crown. I'm finding this season to be kind of depressing. I think probably because I lived through those times, meaning those times were part of my awareness. And I have a very different experience of watching history that I did not live through versus history that was part of my own personal tapestry. And so I'm having to watch this season of The Crown sparingly because it just makes me sad. So that was our weekend. We did a bunch of antiquing. My husband and his amazing ability to find treasures amidst the chaos scored gold for us in the form of 5 new community cookbooks for my collection, several of which are local here to us, feeding my obsession. And I'm just waiting for me to be done, like Forrest Gump when he's running. I know at some point I will be full. I will be sated in terms of my community cookbooks, but I'm definitely not there yet. I'm still collecting. I really am contemplating starting a website. Oh, that sounds like so much work. I need to renegotiate that. But somehow creating some sort of portal, that sounds lovelier. Some kind of portal where I can pay tribute to these books and these women, because I'm falling in love with them. I just am falling in love with these women. You know, most of them had to cook 3 meals a day, every day, through their adult lives for their families. And they didn't have access to what we have access to now in terms of prepared food and fast food and meal boxes and all the things we have now. They had a can of cream of mushroom soup and some frozen broccoli and some saltine crackers. And they figured out how to make a meal for their family out of it. And so I love these recipe books. And so you can look forward to many more episodes about community cookbooks because I now have many to share with you. So hopefully you will also fall in love with these women and their food. And I also have some TV guides to share with you. So lots of future episodes to look forward to together. And thank you for letting me share my wanderings of this weekend with you. Again, just a gentle wandering story to keep you company. And thank you for letting me share a little bit of my life with you. It's lovely to get to share this with you. And I'm so deeply grateful for you. You know, that you are choosing to listen to this is such a blessing. Thank you. I'm so honored to get to spend this time with you. And I hope that I have managed to bring to you some extra love and delight and goodness. So I wish you the sweetest of dreams. I wish you blessings. I wish you miracles of light. And I thank God for the gift of you. So you rest well, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.